So why online rehabilitation, of which Rehubs is the only provider that I'm aware of? Because one of the best things we can do if we suffer from an addictive behavior is modify that behavior in the context in which it occurs. And Rehubs does exactly that. It allows you to continue with your life as you attempt, hopefully successfully, in a successful manner, to change the maladaptive behavior, the addictive behavior in the context in which you live. There are a number of reasons why people should choose this option. Um, One is that it is actually expensive for a variety of reasons, to leave the setting in which you live and, for example, go through rehabilitation at an institution where you have to be physically there for maybe days or weeks. There's this issue that if you learn to discontinue an addictive behavior, but you've not done it where you live, the context in which you live, it's harder to return to that context and adapt the learnings to the cues, to where actually you live day by day. Third is the cost. It's inevitable that treatment that occurs outside one's home, in this case, because this is what Rehubs does, it delivers a rehabilitation where you live. So a treatment outside your home will be far more expensive, especially residential treatment. The belief that we need to remove ourselves from a context in order to overcome an addictive behavior is completely misguided. Why? Because the vast majority of us are engaged in addictive behaviors but remain fairly functional in our lives. A small number of individuals may need to be removed from the context in which they live because their addictive behavior has reached such levels of complexity or such a degree of dependency that they need to be removed, need to go through a detox. But for the rest of us, and I include myself, because almost everyone will have suffered from an addictive behavior in our life, we need to modify that behavior in the context in which we live. Think about it. If you're afraid of taking a lift, how are you going to learn to take a lift? By doing so in an abstract way? Just imagining yourself taking a lift? If you're afraid of public speaking, will you ever overcome public speaking by not being in that context where you need to give a public speech? Or if you're afraid of worrying in a given setting when you're at school, will you start not going back to school anymore so you avoid the worry? From a cognitive and behavioral standpoint, from a learning point of view, we can only ever overcome a problematic behavior in our life, like an addictive behavior, if we do it in the context where we live. We cannot do it in an abstract context. And this is the problem with leaving where we are. Because we go away for a couple of weeks to Mallorca or to Wales, we do an interesting program, we maybe look at a resin, do some mindfulness, have chit-chats with people, do some yoga, do some interesting psychotherapeutic work, but we've not done it in the context where we live. So we come back straight to those cues that are likely to trigger the addictive behaviors, on top ruminating and thinking about how fantastic it was to be in Wales and stare at that raisin, or to be in Mallorca and have a fantastically entertaining, a beautiful session of mindfulness or therapy with others. The problem is we're back where we were before. We need to learn to change our behaviors in the context in which we live. Think about the bullshit we're sold all the time. And this, if you think about it, is the easy way out, the rehab. Because what we should really be doing is supporting each other to overcome an addictive behavior in our community, with each other. So if my son had an addictive behavior of any kind, okay, if he got to a point where he needed a detox, that's fine. But otherwise, they would be back home. They would be doing the sports together, the homework together, going to the park, spending time at the barbers where they mock me because I turn up for a haircut just to be ridiculed. It would be that. It would be creating the reinforcers and the real environment that keep you away from the addictive behavior. Rather than sending him off on a camp for 2 weeks and then comes back and he's back in the queues. How did I overcome my addiction to pasta as an Italian? How did I do it? I didn't stop buying pasta at home. I didn't stop the children eating pasta in front of me because pasta is actually an excellent form of carb with the right sauce. What I learned is that I had to think about why I was eating it, how much I was eating it in relation to the sports I was doing, not eat bread if I also wanted to have pasta, make sure I ate it only once a week, etc. That's how it worked. And you go to my kitchen, there are 30 different types of pasta, if we include tortellini in them.